Wars have been fought over smaller stretches of real estate than have vanished in less than a century.
2,000 square miles of land. That's what geologists tell us Louisiana has lost since 1932.
On Bayou Terrebonne, south of Houma, Myron and Tammy Otama worry about a future with the Gulf of Mexico at their doorstep.
In a few more hurricanes, we won't have anything left here.
In the wake of Hurricane Katrina, as the country became more aware of Louisiana's vulnerability to storms, WVUE TV anchor John Snell set out to report on the loss of the state's natural defenses. Not through just a few stories, but a commitment that has continued for over 13 years, shooting countless hours of video during trips to Louisiana's coastal communities and the wetlands that surround them.
John came out and did a series of stories early on about the coast, and he understood the coast probably better than anybody I know. Prior to Katrina, the main focus to this area was levees and flood walls. So after Katrina, he did a great job explaining a very complicated system and putting it into simple terms where the public could understand it. And by people understanding that, it was able to translate to them asking for the funds that we need to be able to come back and rebuild and protect our coast.
But to truly understand the complex challenges Louisiana faces meant leaving the confines of our own state, traveling not only from the southeastern tip of our country to the northwestern-most reaches, but beyond international borders as well.
If something isn't done along this stretch of this point, what will happen?
I see waterfront properties coming very soon here.
A landscape altered dramatically.
My lifetime so far, this was all land where we're sitting.
He's become an expert in the subject, explaining to viewers the complicated factors behind the loss, from rising seas to subsidence and the Mississippi River placed in a straitjacket of levees, cut off from the delta it built.
It is Crater Island.
On the upper Mississippi, a man-made sand dune becomes a weekend hotspot.
Locally famous for sure.
A trip to Wisconsin and Minnesota illustrated how dams and locks now trap sediment that never reaches New Orleans.
You've got a mountain of sand here.
In the wake of the 2010 Gulf oil spill, Snell traveled to Alaska, as well as the Bay of Campeche, Mexico, to document the economic and legal parallels to the 1989 Exxon Valdez spill and the long-term environmental effects of the Ixtoc spill in 1979. In 2014, in search of more solutions to Louisiana's disappearing coast, Snell once again took viewers beyond state borders, this time to the Florida Everglades, reporting on efforts there to maintain the natural habitat while protecting Florida's fragile coast as well. At home, he chronicled how a chain of heavily oiled islands vanished over several years.
2 years ago, this entire island was like this, so thick with mangroves, you could barely walk through it. Not long before the BP spill, this cut started to form in the middle of the island, and you can see that you have got to book across this thing very quickly or you'll start to sink before you get to these shells. This speed bump, 5 acres of land 4 years ago, goes under at high tide.
Much of the work details the state's controversial plan to rebuild land by diverting part of the river into the marsh, along with the impact any initiative would have on the surrounding areas and the people who live and work there.
This is shallower water. A storm cannot build up as much surge here as it can in open water.
Humans would be impacted too, perhaps none more so than commercial oystermen, who could see a dramatic drop in their catch.
Why do a project that's going to economically harm the very communities you're trying to save?
The fight rages on today as WVUE continues its commitment to educate the public on coastal erosion and its impact on South Louisiana, covering A Coast in Crisis.